Stephanie, the president keeps offering a grand bargain, and they keep rejecting it.
Well, I think maybe what it indicates is that the only thing that the Republicans want more than getting at Social Security and entitlements is not compromising with the president. I mean, that seems to be the case to me. You know, as you said, they're being handed this on a silver platter. The president is saying, "We'll go with you. We'll make these cuts," and they say, "No, we don't want them."
To understand the Republican position, you have to understand that their major objective goals 1, 2, and 3 is shielding high-income people from any sort of tax increase, and that's where it hits. Now, they also say that they're for smaller government, but since they, as you've suggested and you did as well, they don't want to touch the entitlements at least for 10 years, and then after 10 years, probably another 10 years, and they don't want to touch defense. Now, that doesn't leave a lot, but they are whacking away at the rest of the budget, which is the discretionary part that tends to fall on low-income people.
Is that inaccurate?
No, I would disagree entirely. I don't think Jared understands the Republican priorities. I mean, the first is, you're arguing that Republicans don't want to cut entitlements. I would argue Republicans don't want to cut entitlements. They want to save entitlements, and that's what you see in House Republican budgets, in proposals that have actually passed the House, which the point that Jared said, though, is that Republicans don't sitting here talking about. We're sitting here talking about defense sequester that just went through.
Right. Well, hold on. That's a great point. She's right that there are two views within the Republican Party.
I mean, you guys said we need new revenues. You got new revenues on January 1. We can't cut defense spending. You got cut in defense spending.
Look, back in my state of Colorado, I remember this seminal moment in the sequester. Right, the Republicans, Tea Party Republicans, are talking about cutting government, and the sequester discussion started, and suddenly we got John McCain and a couple of Republican senators coming to Colorado to talk about how we can't cut defense, because cutting defense would mean a loss of jobs, it would hurt national security, and I made the point in a column that you can't say that the defense creates jobs and also say government doesn't create jobs.
But Mattie makes a really interesting point, and it's very determined of what's going on, because part of the thinking behind the sequester is Republicans are so against defense cuts that they will come to the table. But there are enough Republicans who don't feel that.
This is what's fascinating, is that they came to be okay with it. And so here's my alternative proposal, okay? So I think this was a poorly designed sword of Damocles, right? It turned out to be like a Nerf sword of Damocles, right? Like, it wasn't actually, everyone sort of was comfortable with it. Yeah. So here's what I say for the next budget deal, to get people to get a budget deal. You got to find something that everyone in Washington really hates. So here's my proposal. If they don't come to a deal, a $1 trillion combo direct jobs program and debt forgiveness program, now that will get people to come to the table. If they don't come up with a deal, the government starts doing a $1 trillion direct hiring of people. Half of it's direct hiring, half of it is debt forgiveness. That'll get people to give you a budget deal. I'm serious, because the problem was they thought, oh, everyone's going to hate this so much they'll come to the table, but Republicans came to stop worrying and love the defense cuts.
You're talking about Republicans winning as a small government libertarian type. This is a great win. This is extraordinarily promising for someone like me who sees Republicans being consistent on this message that
don't get too excited, because I don't see a ton of defense cuts coming.
Was it only and I think
that's the big question.
Is it only a conservative victory? I mean, you could make the argument that the sequestration cuts to defense are a backdoor victory.
Matt Iglesias and Howard Dean have both made that argument, but here's the problem from the perspective of the fact we still have 8% unemployment, right? What's so perverse about the way that the budget politics have played out is that there's a broad consensus that we need short-term counter-cyclical fiscal policy, right, which is a run deficit in the short term for jobs, but that our deficit problems are genuinely mid to long term, right? What has happened is the absolute reverse. Nothing has happened in any of these deals to do anything about the mid to long term, right? I mean, the Affordable Care Act, I think, will do a lot to that. It's all been about short-term contraction. So what we've gotten is austerity in the midst of a jobs crisis, and none of the stuff that the Pete Petersons of the world say that we need to solve the deficit. It's a perverse outcome.
Not only are we getting austerity in the midst of a jobs crisis, but we also have absolutely no reason to suppose that there's a medium or long-term problem problem with the deficit. The problem with the deficit would be reflected in somebody calculating, forecasting high inflation in the future. That's when you know that you have concerns about the deficit is going to be too big. You're going to start seeing, well, whoa, there's an inflation forecast. If the deficit's too big, it means we're going to have too much demand. It means we're going to have inflation in the future. Where's the credible study? Where's the forecast? Any forecast.
Where's the market price signals?
Where is it in the tips? Where is it anywhere that the deficit is actually a problem, even in the long term?
Explain what tips are, because they're a specific kind of security that calculates it.
So those are securities that investors can pile into if they're concerned about inflation over the long term.
Inflation-protected bonds.
Right. Absolutely not there. Right. Not in the medium term, short term. There is no long-term deficit problem. And because the Republicans, by and large, the Republicans have convinced everybody that we have this long-term deficit problem, they're able to sell this kind of austerity in the short term because, my God, if it's coming, we might as well act now, right?
So,
and that's how you get people to support these awful economic policies that just make the conditions worse.
Hold that thought. I want to make the argument that Barack Obama is the only man in Washington who actually wants a grand bargain, who actually is like being honest about what he's trying to do, and everyone else isn't. Right after this.